To,
Yes.
Okay, we have a,
So are we allowed to pass out?
Yep.
this is an informal meeting, so I don't believe I need to appoint anybody.
No, it's just an informal.
So,
But I'd like to be introduced to something I don't know.
Sure,
Yeah.
Peter Holden from Holden Engineering.
Hi, Peter. My name is Rich Brown.
Hi.
I'm an alternate on the board.
I'm Paul May.
Yes, I know you, Paul.
You know me, right?
vaguely.
Tim Cook?
Yeah.
Is your wife Sophie?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought, yeah.
Wait, are you in the zone, wait, no, you're zoning.
What?
Were you on the zoning at some point?
No.
And this is Kevin Sarr, our select board representative.
How you doing?
And I'm the on staff. And this is David Robbins, who you know, I'm sure. So, why don't you tell us what you have to say?
So I also have these things
Yeah.
here.
So what I brought was, this is a survey of the lot around Paul's house and a lot that he owns across the street.
Okay, and just, this is another alternate, David Van Lee.
And so what this first package is the first sheet is just to show the lot around his house and a lot across the street.
Okay, so this is his house, the
Yeah.
4.4 acres,
Yep.
and then 1.1
1.1.
across, okay, on Dorchester.
And so,
And that's where Patty Jones sort of,
Some of it's, some of it's.
yeah, yeah. And so, this is sort of the chronological history of what's gone on this property. This first lot,
So hold on, oh,
this first sheet,
the first sheet, okay,
yeah, if you turn to the next page,
okay.
on the big sheets. This was a subdivision in 1981, and you can see where it says, down here it says house lot, parcel 1, and then there was a lot created behind it, and a lot created behind that, 2B and 2C, and the access to all the lots except for the house lot was this road that goes up into the woods. It's a paved driveway, it's actually a pretty nice road.
Okay, so-
I actually did
Where's the
this on the map, where I colored it, also it's the same.
And you
map.
should say this is just to the east of
This is.
Paul's lot.
Yeah, his lot is where it says Frederick Ibley.
Oh, okay, that's
Maybe,
his
yeah.
lot.
Yeah, that's his lot.
well, your
Okay.
house is where Patty Tanks grew up, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
just to make sure.
So you can, so that was the first subdivision,
So the first subdivision was into the 3 lots
was to create 3 lots.
with this road going through.
Yeah, with this road.
Right, I guess we'll sit there if I can interrupt, 'cause so I passed out this thing also, it's a letter from Jim Poe, who was owner before me of my lot. Give it to you here. So you can probably read, on the one that Peter just showed you, read the
The subdivision approval.
the approval, but it basically says on appendix A of this letter that I gave you, it's bigger if you can't read that. It says subdivision approval, it says, under number 3, it says access to parcel 2B and 2C shall be over the quote existing road on this plan. And uses the quote existing road a couple times, so that's 81. Basically, the point being is that ultimately, the upper right lot, 2C, is using this road now, based on that original grant of using that right of way.
And these are otherwise unimproved lots, I mean, there's no houses on them?
There's a house on 2C.
There's a house on 2C.
So that's their driveway now.
So, maybe I'll just back up, so what you guys what we're trying to walk through here is essentially, on that right of way now, there's 2 houses.
On both of those lots, B and C?
No, so there's a house to the right of the right of way, which is Hank Flickinger's house.
And is that on C?
No, that's not, well, we're gonna get there, I'm just trying to, basically the issue is that there's two, originally is, I guess why I'm stopping here is because originally the planning board provided access to those two back lots over this driveway,
Okay,
existing road as they call it, then they eventually call it a driveway. But on 2C, there is a house, 2A became part of my property.
2A, oh, so
Right.
that merged into your
Sorry,
property?
2B became part of my property, the one on the left,
Yeah.
20 acres on the left.
Why don't we do this, why don't we look at the next sheet of the plan,
Okay.
and then we can start chronologically. So the first one we looked at creates 3 lots, the one in the front and the 2 in the back. And then if we flip the page, what happened was, they created an additional lot, and it's labeled 2A1, 8 acres. So you had parcel 2C in the back, and then you had parcel 2B1 in the back, and they reconfigured some of the front out here to make this lot an additional lot.
You can also see as you're looking at these, I color coded them, so you can, on the smaller sheets, and so you can see that maybe a little bit differently the color of how the lot lines change.
And if you look on 2B1, you see this kind of curved line right here. And it says 2A2 annexed to 2B1. So they took a piece of 2A2 and added to 2B1 to make a bigger lot there. So it was 17.9 plus 2.7 acres. But you see Hoagie's, which is Paul's house lot, is still an independent lot here.
Yeah, under this scenario, now that back 20 acres, it's become part of my lot.
Under what scenario?
Under the
this-
next-
So that's why I sort of color, well, that's the next step, and then the third one, they end up, so basically there is this first subdivision, which I'm showing, if anyone's looking at this one, which is these 2 lots here. Right, and you can see Pogue is still this little green lot at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then the Menards are the blue one in the middle. And then the next step, basically, that right one stayed, and then they basically did lot line adjustments, and created what my current property is now.
So that's on this next page, right? This one? Does that take us to this one? Yeah?
That's the second one?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that's the way it is now?
Yes.
No, that's not the way it is.
Okay, I'm glad.
So then I gave you a third sheet, which I think Peter, but so before we go past this one, if you look at the third condition on the upper left,
Which one are you talking about?
Maybe we should label these.
Yeah, I mean,
A, B,
I'm having
C, or something, you keep
trouble-
flipping pages
So on
and
the one-
saying this sheet, that sheet, and I don't always see which one it
I
is.
think the problem is that it's on the small, we've now shifted to the small.
oh yeah, I didn't realize that we were both doing that, I don't know if this is more helpful or.
All right, but,
Okay, so this one here,
okay, so what are we up to, this?
That's the last one,
yeah,
That's the last one, so we're up to this?
yes.
Okay,
So that one, if you look at condition 3, it says that the driveway is shown on the plan serve parcel 2C, which is the existing one on the right, back right. Right?
yeah.
The-
There's a house
It's in,
The couriers.
yeah, the couriers in the back right. And then, and the land of Pogue. The Pogue one is now this whole green lot,
right,
which is basically taken, there's some other adjustments that are done all throughout. If you go back and forth with the previous one, there's some other small adjustments that are made. But basically, they just added the 20 back acres of the lot that had been sheared off in 81, subdivided in 81.
and that never had,
This is
had a,
88.
that never had a house on it.
Never had a house on it. In 88, they did this, and basically, the point again is they said the driveway the whole issue here is whether we can use this as this driveway as road frontage for another subdivision of that 20 acres in the back.
So Paul, you own 4.4 acres, right? Plus the piece across the road?
Plus the 17.
plus the stuff in the
Oh,
back.
that's not shown on this.
No, here, he owns this whole green lot,
Right.
plus this here.
Plus this.
No, that's the existing house.
No.
Across the street is also part of it.
This-
That one,
This is what you have now?
no, that's,
No, that's what he wants to end up with. for
sorry, I
the
mean,
lot.
the only thing confusing about this is that on some of these, this parcel here
Yeah.
is basically over here.
Right,
I didn't color it in because it's kind of irrelevant at this point.
right.
This original line is basically this, but what they did from the first one, there's a lot line adjustment here, you see how that's straight now? So basically, they came down here, they swapped some land here.
So this isn't accurate.
This is the original, this was
Yeah,
what original.
so this isn't, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, this is
So
this
we-
is 70, this is 1979.
And this is Eric Furstenberg.
There.
Well,
So this is not relevant today.
No,
That's just.
so let's stick with these little ones and move along to what you want to do.
So I'm just pointing out there that it says that code land or my land and 2C should use this right of way as a driveway.
Okay.
And I'll let-
Basically, what he wants to do is, if you look at this one that has the curved note on it, and it says 2A2 annex to 2A1, and it combines it with a code piece. What he wants to do is just unwind that and have it so that the Karen and James Pogue lot and the land across the street are a 5-acre piece of property. And the land behind, which was the 17.9 and the 2.7, become the lot that it was originally, which is lot 2B.
And you want to do that because, because you want to subdivide that off.
Right. He wants to use that as a.
And this road isn't on your property, or is it?
No, it's on Hank Flickinger's property.
What is Paul doing now?
So,
Yeah, so he owns the green, this green area.
That's it?
this here that you're looking at is the next subdivision. This happens in,
Right, but Paul, this is today, this is what you
sorry,
own,
the next one's here.
right?
That's what I own
This
now.
green area, so this is owned by somebody else, which is this.
Well, so then, you're gonna go to the next one, which is this. And what I did on this page,
Is there another?
show it in red, this is Hank Flickinger's, he did another subdivision after this one, where it says that these two lots are using this
Right, so he
driveway.
did another
He
one.
made a third subdivision.
But
But you
basically,
don't know where your house is, because the house is down here, right?
his house is,
That's the Menard's house.
this is his house. Look,
Oh,
hey,
okay.
can I have everybody's attention and see if we can agree on this? This green area, and interrupt me if I'm wrong. This green area here is what Paul owns today on this side of the street, right?
Yes.
Okay, so does everybody get that? His house is down on the old Pogue parcel,
Right, where it says, okay.
okay, is that right? And what you'd like to do is go back to the way it was,
Essentially,
and use this road,
right. Which is referenced as a driveway for the entire lot, basically.
for the,
So it just touches your property in that one little spot there.
He's got 191 feet of,
Yeah, right there. is where it touches.
so, I guess, I'll ask our planning and zoning administrator, what are your thoughts in terms of,
It's not a public road.
yeah,
So it's
that
not-
was my thought.
It is a driveway, and both the zoning and the subdivision regulations say driveway will not serve more than 2 lots.
Right.
Right, so the issue is that after the one that you're looking at, where there's essentially 3 lots that we're looking at, I'm looking at this one here,
That's it.
right,
Yeah,
we're still here.
Yeah.
You're looking at my lot on the left, in the middle is the Menards, and on the right is now the Couriers, the 20 acres in the back, right?
right.
And under this scenario that was signed by Don Metz, basically it says my lot and the back lot are served by that driveway, and then within the packet that you have here, if you wanna do more research, it shows the deed where the Menards deeded this right-of-way over their property to my lot, which is the Pogues at that point, into the Couriers on the 20 acres in parcel 2C. Where the confusion comes in is the next map, which basically is the third one.
Can we label these, please? Can we, so this one that you were just talking about, let's call that sheet A. We keep going back and saying, I'm talking about this one, and I don't know
So
what
let's,
it's bothering me.
we're gonna
We
label it,
number them.
looking at the little ones,
Maybe start at the beginning.
this is sheet
Yeah.
A.
Yeah, let's go to the beginning and number them.
Okay. So,
So what I tried to do is, you can't see
No,
the date.
this is
Okay.
sheet A.
Well,
Well, hold on.
Could we get an official designation?
Yeah,
for each of these?
before anybody
let's
starts,
just we need to label these. 'cause
so everybody look at this one.
All right, that one has.
I mean,
green down there.
we don't need to label this, do we?
Okay.
All right, so this is the first one where you're separating with color.
That's A.
This is A.
A, okay.
Then we'll go, the next one obviously will be B.
Which is the next, make sure we're all.
This
right.
one, is this,
Without the
That's-
orange.
That's November 19th, 1987. In the
Uh,
bottom
no.
right- In the
No,
bottom
that's
right.
88.
No, it's
No.
February 8th, 1988.
the first one is April 3rd, 1985.
Wait,
What?
wait,
That's what I got.
oh, you're looking at the stamp at the
At the
very
top,
top.
Yes.
yeah, at the top.
Okay, the stamp up here.
And then
Where are you
February 8th,
looking?
I'm
1988.
looking at
There's
the
like
stamp on the
25
bottom.
dates on here. April 3rd, 1988.
Let's just go by the ones on top.
Okay.
Then the second
I
one
highlighted the dates on it.
is February 8th, 1988 is B.
Okay.
That's B.
It's B.
And then July 18th is C.
Yes.
And then is there, okay, so
And then,
that's,
so-
so we just have A, B, and C. So right now, we're on C.
Chronological.
Yeah, so now we're on C.
So C, basically after they did this lot line adjustment and Pogues combined took this back 20 acres and made one lot. And it was said that they could use this right of way as a driveway to it. Then the Menards came back and the piece in orange, they peeled off, which, you know, people are confused about everything. The piece in orange is Hank Flickinger's house. Right,
So that's what he owns now, 7.7
that's where he owns
acres.
now. He actually, that's when David was saying there's 2 houses, there's a house on the orange parcel, and there's a house on the back Courier parcel.
So,
But
when,
as you note in the thing, it doesn't say anything about who, you know, about the driveway or anything else.
yeah, but we do have this thing that says driveway can't serve more than
Right, so,
2.
and so basically, that's 88. And then Jim Pogue, which you all have, wrote this letter, which basically, you can read it, all everything we're saying is not clear, but basically said, we were given access by the planning board to use this right-of-way as a driveway to our land. And then after that was granted to us by deed and by the planning board, there was this next subdivision which somehow, you know, as you can see by
So,
looking at the red
he's
parcel,
he's saying that a mistake was made?
he's basically saying that he thinks there was a mistake made and they never waived their rights.
They being who?
Pogues.
Okay.
And the planning board didn't reference, as you can see on the last one we read, on C, doesn't reference on the left side, I highlight what they said, it just says approved by the Lyme Planning Board with the conditions that parcel B become part and parcel of parcel A. That's just referring to the part in blue at the bottom, which is the remaining Menard part, it says parcel B and
To
parcel
be,
A.
and,
B and C became part and parcel.
No, the blue,
Oh.
the only thing that's referring to is basically saying that, is that the Menards in blue basically is the same lot. It doesn't refer to the driveway or anything else.
So the red and blue are the same lot now?
No, they're separate lots.
Separate, okay.
A and B are both blue,
A and B together are bounded by
Are
the
blue,
blue.
right, A and B together are blue, so that's what they're referring to, is that that's what that one note refers to.
C,
A is a very thin strip
Right down
along
on
the
the road
road.
where the
along
house
the
is.
road.
yeah, it's in the parentheses.
Okay.
Oh, okay, there we go, there's A, all right.
That's why we both, Peter and I both tried highlighting and stuff, and whatever
That's helpful.
his are bigger, so they're easier to read,
All
but.
right, so just in your own words, what do you see as having happened here and what the problem is?
So, echoing what Jim Pogue wrote in 91, basically, you have this where the Menards did a first subdivision on Plat A that we have here, where they get approval by the planning board to use the driveway only for those two lots.
So this is on A,
On A. That's what,
and there's a
So there's two
permitting,
back lots get the driveway.
there's two back lots, you use this driveway over here.
and that's the only right being granted there.
Well, again, if you read the letter, which is stapled together, that Pogue wrote in the back, you can maybe more easily read what the.
Well, yeah, I know, but I'm just trying to be efficient here. In your understanding, what happened?
They basically, on Plat A, they said that access to parcel 2B and 2C, which are the two back 20-acre lots, and, whatever aqua blue that is, right? It says, access to those two lots shall be over the existing road shown on this plan, right? And so, basically, this is before zoning, but basically they're saying those two lots use that as a driveway. And then on Plat B, where the Pogues and now my land basically merge with that back 20-acre lot,
On B?
basically they take over 2B at that point.
So B is a lot line adjustment?
So A was sort of a subdivision, and then B was more of a lot line adjustment, I guess, between the Menards and the Pogues.
And that's also pre-zoning, right?
It's also pre-zoning, and on that, the planning board says that the driveway, and they use the word driveway, shown in the plan, serves parcel 2C and the land of Pogue. Right, so basically
So
at that
that's
point.
Which is 2C?
And the land of,
Two-
and
okay,
Pogue,
2C.
and Pogue's land.
Which is 2B.
So those are the two,
Still the back two.
those are still the back.
Essentially, in theory, you could be, I think, as Jim Pogue pointed out at the time, there's this little squiggle. They were basically looking at different points to be able to access and basically subdivide this again at some point, and they were gonna use that as the existing, as the road frontage.
But a driveway is a private, this is a private drive.
Right.
So, David, correct me, but you can't use a private drive for road frontage.
No.
Well, the point being is that the back, in other words, the whole point is that 2C doesn't have any road frontage. They're on a driveway. How is that a legal lot? The point is that it was.
Well, I guess it was pre-zoning for one thing. So it's grandfathered, but I mean, I don't know what I'm just looking at what we have here now. I'm not,
And how is 2A access? Lot 2A. This lot, how's that access?
I don't know.
Because it can't use this because it would be three.
Which page, you're on A now.
Yeah.
Are we looking at B?
I'm on B.
Yeah, I think we're on B at this point.
Okay, well, the same,
And then, so basically after you have that, with being able to use that as a driveway, you have, the Menards a few months later on C peeling off another portion, and now those two, parcels use that one driveway. And the argument is, and I'd have to read back,
This is done in 1988,
right, July 1988.
July 18th, 88.
You know, so I don't know, I'm saying road frontage, but my understanding is based on the zoning, that if we have a driveway up there, that we could subdivide this just like the couriers have. So
Well, I don't know what was, I have to look at the minutes and the decision on, you know, look, how many lots are on this driveway?
There would be three.
Three.
Where do you want, what's your proposed, where do you want to divide your, how would you want to divide your property?
So if you're looking at the third one, which is what's current now, number C.
C.
Okay.
Basically, if you look, where it says Karen and James Pogue,
Yeah,
right, just above that, there's a line which comes across the property, which is a stone wall.
Right,
That's the original lot line there before they took the back,
okay.
right?
So, then that's where you wanna,
So we would
So,
subdivide there,
so-
and then that would leave us with over 5 acres.
so my question to all of us is, and this, I guess especially to you, David, is, just on a quick look, it doesn't seem that they have the road front, or do they have the road
It's
frontage
landlocked.
for this subdivision?
the back lot would have no road frontage.
Right, well,
Yeah.
that's
It's a
the,
landlocked lot.
That's the issue.
the biggest of the issues. I think that there may have been something, a mistake made, I don't.
It looks like there was a
Looks like,
mistake.
from what they're saying, I haven't researched it to
But just
confirm that.
on the surface of it, it looks
And-
like there was an error by allowing too many,
Right, and so that can be, I think, dealt with the zoning board.
yeah.
You know,
But that's,
various-
that's the three houses, that's the three lots in the driveway issue?
Three lots in the
Yeah.
driveway issue, I think can be dealt with, you know, if you can show that there was an error, that, and I think that's, you know, this other.
Is that covered by equitable waiver? I'm
No, I
not sure
don't
about
think equitable
driveways.
waiver does, because I think equitable waiver is only dimensional controls.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think when they created parcel C though, what they didn't do, they created 3 lots on a road because they didn't extinguish the rights of
Yeah,
Pogue to use the
Right.
road.
Right, and I
I
think
think that's right,
Yeah.
what happened.
that's right.
So I think, you know, again, I think that's an error that it can be dealt with by the zoning board.
Yeah, but the bigger issue
Is,
on the face of it is that this isn't a public road, so it can't be used as.
it cannot be used as road frontage, and
For
the
the
zoning
purpose of
requires
subdivision.
300 feet of road frontage.
Unless the ZBA gives us a
Right.
There,
But if, and so, yeah, I don't have the zoning with me now, and I didn't research that, because we've already been over this so many times, and my understanding is that because it is a driveway, and we have use for it, that we could in essence, it serves, you know, they were basically grandfathering in some type of access to the back there.
Well, I think if that's the case, you do have access. That's not the issue. The issue isn't whether you have access or not, the issue is one of road frontage.
It doesn't change the fact that you still need to have road frontage, even if your access is
No,
not.
but I guess my question for you, since you're the expert, is I've come in a few times and discussed this with you. And it was never like, there was always the issue like, well, somewhere in the zoning, it basically described the using of a driveway.
If you look at,
Which doesn't necessarily have to go across your.
well, 831 is the vacant lot. But that's speaking of lots that are in existence, and you're creating a brand new lot.
Is that a new, is that, when you look at the zoning?
Yes,
Is
this
it an extra one? Is that one there?
No, this is subdivision.
Sorry, well, you can keep going.
But 831 is where it talks about vacant lots, and if there is a plan showing a driveway. Your lot right now is not a vacant lot. You have a house on it. You would be creating the vacant lot. And so going forward, creating that new lot, I see that as not having any road frontage.
C, equals C, C is pretty much current, right? Yeah, C is current, yeah. So,
So
what,
he,
what Paul wants to do
So
is
Paul owns all this?
everything in green,
Yeah.
and he wants to
So then he
subdivide.
doesn't, but his house is.
No, it's not on there, it's here.
Oh, okay. It's
Yeah,
not
the house
drawn
is,
now.
the house is Lewis Menards.
Yeah, it's just not drawn, okay.
Yeah, so he basically wants to subdivide back
Right.
to where it was, but there's not road frontage. There's access, but no road frontage. So I don't know how we can approve that. Does anybody have comments?
Yeah, I guess I need to, I mean,
I guess it's really a question of pre-zoning or after zoning. It's pre-zoning, it was allowed to have parcels. If you look at A.
But there have been changes over time, and, you know, I absolutely agree that the road, the driveway access, and it may have been, I gotta look at the progression, but if the Pogue had acquired that back land, it, you know, the right-of-way still gives him access to that back land. And then the planning board said, okay, well, they're, you know, they now don't need the access as a driveway because you have access from Route 10.
right.
Or from the
They
Dorchester
didn't
Road.
say that, though.
Right. But I'm making assumptions that that's how, you know, in their mind, they're looking through this. But it's still, you know, when you look at what's there now versus what the board can approve, the problem lies in with that road frontage, that you're trying to create a lot with no road frontage.
So he would need to go to the zoning board of adjustment and maybe straighten out the three homes on a driveway.
Yep.
He'd have to get a variance to allow a lot with no frontage.
Yep.
Or if he sliced off a piece, some kind of frontage that was not 300 feet. Because he doesn't have 600 feet of frontage on his house lot.
I was just gonna ask, how much?
He's got 490. You know, and he occupies pretty much the whole lot with his garage and, you know, could you whack off a hunk of it and go there with less than 300, but, you know, 200 or 300? I guess that's up to the ZBA.
Now, the other thing I have seen the planning board do years in the past, and I don't know if it's something I think town council would need to weigh in on, but the planning board has applied road frontage from another portion of a lot to a new lot that didn't have road frontage. So the idea would be that he has a piece on the south side of Dorchester Road. If he was to apply 300 feet of that road frontage to the back lot and reserve that road frontage, meaning that that lot couldn't be developed, or that portion of that lot to the south couldn't be developed.
274 feet.
So if there's only 207, then it still would need, and I don't know if that is something that still can be done. I've seen at least one in town.
What, going back how far?
I'd have to,
Prior to your time?
prior to my
Okay,
time.
yeah,
It was done up on Dorchester Road, actually, out by Reservoir Pond, where they reserved road frontage for a back.
well, even if it had been done, it would be a matter for either the zoning board or the planning
Well, it would
board.
be the planning board, I believe, would be the ones who would approve the lot based on the giving up of the road frontage of that other
Yeah,
portion of the
but
lot.
that's,
And there'd be an easement that would have.
so
to be-
where would the other frontage be coming from?
His lot
Across the street.
goes across the street,
Across the street?
so he'd be.
So-
They don't have 300 feet here.
No, but he could steal some from his house lot and do that.
Yeah, so there basically be an easement saying,
So, okay, so what's the road frontage on the,
274 on the other side of the street.
and there's no house on this lot?
No,
So, and what you're saying is, based on that, then you'd be giving up the right to develop this lot?
right, basically say that, I'm not gonna
So
develop.
it's kind of a trade-off, the way they handle
You
it.
know, because he has additional road frontage on that side of the road.
And is there?
And again, I don't know if that is even,
Yeah, I mean, where are we authorized to do that?
Are you talking about, if you have lots on each side of the road, that you count the road frontage twice?
you count it on either side.
because of
It
the,
is road frontage on.
But even if you
There's a
did
lot.
that, where are we authorized to?
I'm not sure, that's why I need to talk to town council
Yeah, I
on
think you
that,
would need
because the only reason I bring it up is I've seen it done in the past.
Right,
And whether it was right, wrong, or not, I
Right.
don't know, but
right. So,
because it doesn't say that it has to be contiguous. So, I guess you could have it in 60.
yeah, the
places.
only thing about the way our regulations are written is it's positive.
Mhm.
So generally, except where it's impossible, we're supposed to interpret it as, it states affirmatively that things can be done. The
Mhm.
omission is not necessarily
Mhm.
helpful.
The only other thing I thought about was, we've done a lot of these, is making it a 2-unit condominium, a land condo. And he's gonna have some relationship, but it won't be very much, you know, so there'd be.
So where would would be, his home would become,
Like, his home and the land around it would become one condo unit, and the back land would be the second condo unit.
so if we go through that,
yeah, I'm not sure Lyme's zoning regulations allow for that. There's another condominium development that had proposed land, and the town council was adamant that it was not, because it was a non-conforming, that the land was non-conforming lots, that it couldn't be done
Mhm.
that way.
so what if there was another if there was a house on, then it could be done? If there was an existing house on the,
I think your condo association would have to own the lot, and then somebody else would own the house.
right,
But then
so,
yeah, you'd have to deal with still have to deal with the zoning board for the,
but could they basically have a condo association owning the whole thing, and then build, still don't have
Yeah, you have a condo association
Oh,
that owns the whole thing.
the whole thing,
And then you
but-
have, the house lot is a limited common area of 1, and the back land is a limited common area of 2. which
Yeah,
means that-
except that there's only one, I mean, it's just a condo in name only, there's no other unit.
Yeah, there's one unit, there's the house,
Yeah,
And
no other unit.
the house and the lot is a unit. The empty land is the other unit. that-
Yeah, but I think that's where you're gonna run into trouble.
Oh, we do this a lot.
Right,
Lane,
who's-
Lane
who's we?
condos. Our company does this, you know, we,
In
with,
Lyme?
not in line, but
Okay,
a lot of places.
well-
that was something that was recently looked at,
Oh, really?
and the having of the land, there's basically a group of cabins, and they wanted to have, 5 feet around each cabin.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And because those would be non-conforming lots, and no road frontage, they're too small, town council looked at that and said, not under the Lyme zoning.
Mm. Mm. It'll be something to look at.
Yeah,
So,
There is another possibility of somewhat, again, I haven't thought through this yet.
oh, so let me just say, since we're, just so that we're very clear, this is an informal meeting, so all of us are speaking off the cuff, so there's nothing binding either of you or any of us
Right.
with what we say here today. So when David's saying stuff, He's not bound, you're not bound, we're not bound. We are unbound, we are free. But please continue.
The planning board can approve additional housing, or houses on a lot, basically, if you are able to subdivide. And because of the additional road frontage on the other side, there may be the ability to subdivide. And so the board could approve a second house. That house could be placed in the back and sold as a condo, as you're saying. Because again,
So,
but you have to look at the subdividability of the lot, to make sure it could actually be subdivided in any way. But I think that piece across the road, I've always looked at those as, because it doesn't say you can't, that the road frontage is on both sides of the road. You know, your lot is on both sides of the road, so you have frontage on both sides. So if you add up the road frontage on both sides and get over 600 feet,
Yeah, it's almost 800.
yeah, so there, that is I would say a definite, but it's something that could be looked into.
When does zoning come into place?
89.
89.
So I guess the question again is, so my question, I think and what Jim Pogue wrote in 1991, was, on Plan B, basically you have parcel 2C and Plan A, where you have two 20-acre lots, this is pre-zoning, but two 20-acre lots that don't have road frontage and aren't required to, they just have to have access to the road via this driveway. And that clearly talks about, neither of those two lots shall be improved for any use requiring on-site sewage disposal without applicable building permit and septic system approval. So basically, they understood that they were gonna be used as building lots. And then, and they talk about using the existing road to access those two lots. And then in 88, on part B, they approved this, this new lot line adjustment, and then basically merge that back 20 acres. But that back 20 acres basically had, sort of grandfathered road rights over this existing right of way.
It's a right-of-way, right?
Well, it had an existing right to be a buildable lot at the time, when they approved it, because it discusses, and there's a house back on 2C. They basically discuss on in the back left lot that you can build something, but you need it.
I understand, but subsequently that lot has been merged with another lot.
Right, but then
And
they still.
And another house has been built, so
But
now you have two houses.
But that's something, but that extra house being built is something separate, because what I'm saying is that they merged them, but they basically, by referencing that the driveway still serves that land, in some sense in 88, there's an argument that,
And again, I don't know when the two limit came into play. That may have been in 88, and it wasn't until zoning, or may have been subsequent changes to the zoning, I don't know.
It sounds like what needs, if you're gonna go forward with this, what needs to be done is more research into exactly what was done when. And also, we're gonna need town council's opinion, I'm sure.
so my question, basically what it seems like is that they conveyed a buildable lot and they allowed it to merge, and then but they still references it as a driveway, which to me is an argument that the planning board basically recognized that it was still a driveway that was serving.
I would say it's an argument.
It's an argument,
Yeah.
right?
And
That's what
at the time, yes, but
Right.
once the merger occurred with, your house lot, the lot where your house is, then, you've changed everything again.
That's where but when they did that, they referenced the driveway shall serve.
Well, I think rather than go back and forth on that, that's something to get clarification from town
I'm
council.
just wondering, I guess my question is, and as Jim Pogue wrote in his letter, is basically, it's strange to think that the town was allowing these lots to be, back lots to be used as buildable lots. And then when they merge what's currently my lot, one of the back 20 lots that's buildable with POG, it still referenced the driveway to that area.
Right, I get
So
that, I
in
get
that
you.
sense, you might argue, I'm just giving you guys a preview of what might be litigated, I guess, but that they referenced that the driveway, that it still existed, that it was still something that would, that was an existing right of the POGs, and sort of assumes that maybe they might want to subdivide, which is why
Oh, but that,
Jim Poe wrote this in 91, basically saying, we don't understand why you did this. We think that we should still be able to use that driveway and subdivide.
well, the use of the driveway is different from subdivision, so it might mean that that could be the one driveway that serves the whole lot. Right?
I don't think that,
I think, considering the topography, I think it would be stretching it to think that they
So,
expected the
you know,
driveway to go up and all the way back
I wanna
down.
just stop at this point, because there's no need, we're not in
I'm just
lit-
trying to describe what I guess
I totally-
my issue is that I think that there's a grandfathered right here.
Right.
It's just that the
I understand your point of view, and I think we're gonna have to get feedback from town council on it.
Just sorry if I'm a little bit irritated, but I brought this to David over many
Well,
years.
you know,
I-
we're used to irritated people, that's what we do.
It's not, I'm not irritated, it just, I spent $6,000 and it never came up at all that there was an issue of road front. So I'm just sort of like,
that,
I know, I'm just saying.
that it's basic zoning, that the road frontage,
But it didn't,
I would speak to your engineer about that.
Disaster. Oh, I'm sorry.
One other question I have, which may have nothing to do with this, but since I'm new to town. What is that road like now? What do you?
Dorchester?
No,
Oh,
the
the
driveway,
driveway?
yeah,
I
what's
don't
the
know.
width, what's the standard? Because in my old town, if you turned a driveway, if you add the third house lot, you had to bring the driveway up to a new standard. Because the public safety reason was they wanted to be able to get fire trucks in there.
Well,
If you
that's-
had multiple houses
That
going.
should always be, it's part of the requirements that the planning board get an okay from the fire department. So it would, the fire department would have
So
to.
it wasn't, in our case, it didn't become a town road, but you had to build it to
And that's the
a
same.
town road standard.
Yeah.
So that you could get
Yeah.
larger vehicles on it.
Yeah.
And as soon as you added the third house, you had to do it, because I had to go through that myself.
That's generally, yeah,
Yeah, that would be, it could become a subdivision road.
Because the purpose of road frontage is twofold. One is public safety, so you can get emergency vehicles there. And two, so that you don't end up with lots of narrow lots and houses really close together, but meeting the acreage requirements.
so,
Those are the
yeah, in
two.
terms of what you're saying about the fire safety, that is an issue of mine as well.
Okay, so my question, I guess, was, is there a provision that if it were to be grandfathered in, but you now have multiple houses on there, would there be a requirement that road meet a standards
What's
at
that?
that point?
You need a certain spec.
Yeah, well,
The
but
fire chief would have to approve it.
But I think what Paul's saying is that this, whatever was done here was approved under the conditions which it was already approved under. If we did something going forward, we would need to meet that standard. I don't know what the standards were that
Okay,
we
that's
did
just,
this.
Well, I think the question Dave is asking is whether it's an option to bring that driveway up to certain standards. Is
in
that-
lieu of frontage. I mean, if we were to say, yes, it is grandfathered, or there was an error made, or something,
there
then
something
you
that
have
could be
access,
done?
somebody can go in there, but now you have 4 houses potentially off this road. The question from a public safety standpoint, is that a wise thing to do?
it'll only be 3 houses.
3, 1, 2, 3, okay.
The other
Well,
two
This
are
one,
on
this one.
I'm not sure that we could do that, but maybe the zoning board could grant a variance.
Particularly if he has almost 200 feet on that wood road driveway, whatever you want to call it. And if he could take 100 feet off from Dorchester Road and add it to the back part, then he'd have 300 feet of frontage. 100 feet on Dorchester Road, almost 200 feet, or a little more than 200 feet on, 100 feet on Dorchester Road, and then almost 200 feet on the driveway to make it 300 feet.
But the driveway is still not a road,
Right,
which,
still
so
not a
it doesn't really count that way, but,
Yeah.
but from a functional standpoint, you're right, that
Right.
you'd be saying, we're giving you,
No, I'm thinking as if the fire chief said, you know, the road's pretty good, I don't have a problem with
But the
another
fire
house there.
chief can't overrule the regulations, so that's different.
No, what I'm saying is, we have two things. Too many houses on a driveway, which I think was a mistake. And then we have needing 300 feet of frontage. And if it doesn't say the frontage has to be contiguous, then you could have.
Well, I
100
think that issue, first of all, I would like to get the town council's input, but it's all what you're gonna,
Yeah.
if you're gonna come before the board, you're gonna make that case to the board.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the board would say, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't wanna give a definitive sense of it without getting
Mhm.
feedback from the town council.
Can we give you, like, questions that we have to give to the town council, so that,
I won't guarantee you, that I have, I'm not gonna give you free access to town council.
I was
But
gonna give it,
I'm-
I was gonna give it to you.
Right,
You
but,
do that.
but what I'm saying is, I'm not going to, it costs the town money every
Yeah.
time I contact town council. And so I'm willing to some extent, talk with town council on questions, but I
David
won't
uses
guarantee.
his judgment upon, to determine whether or not he thinks it's in the interest of the town
Yeah.
to forward questions.
Yeah, so we could just give you questions that we're thinking of, which I think is some of the same questions
Yeah,
you're talking about.
absolutely.
And then, so we don't get you that, and then we say, did you ask him this? And you say, oh, gee, didn't think about
Yeah,
that.
no, absolutely, so, but like I said, I will use my judgment as far as,
Who is it down
kind of what's.
Mitchell.
Mitchell Group.
Mitchell Group,
Steve Whitley is typically the gentleman I get hold of.
but we've had others.
Yeah.
In Concord, right?
No, Laconia.
Okay.
I much prefer Jay Whitelaw, but she doesn't seem to like us anymore.
Yeah.
She doesn't answer the phone?
All right, so, what else do we need to go over? Anything, so you'll ask the questions that
Yeah.
we wanna have answered. You'll submit questions and David will use his judgment.
Sure.
Whether,
There won't be a lot of them.
Yeah.
okay, and,
Have we gotten as far as conservation districts on this parcel? Is there, there are steep slopes, or there's other stuff that we need to?
yeah, well,
Could be a headache later on,
yeah, well, we don't,
and we don't know
We
right
don't
now.
know. I mean, if you're gonna do an actual subdivision, then you'll have to go through the whole process. This isn't, you're just giving us a quick overview with this, but you understand that.
Yeah.
Just from my learning, where are the houses now? Thanks.
There, there, and
So everywhere, every lot has one except for the old back old lot.
There's two houses on the same lot.
No. Here,
One that has
here,
red in it, and here,
and here.
And here.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
blue lot on your
that's-
map there,
that's
Kevin's
one
been
lot,
divided.
isn't it?
It's two lots.
Here,
It's
and
two
here.
lots.
There's
Turn,
two?
turn the page, Kevin. You want that one?
Okay, yeah, so one here, one here,
there.
one
Oh,
here,
okay, got
and
it.
one here, so it's four, right?
Yeah.
So there, yeah, four.
Okay.
Four houses on four
Thank
lots.
The front two houses use Dorchester.
Yes.
And this lot actually has frontage on there, 100 feet,
Just in the blue driveway, right? Is it 100 feet?
well, 98.
Oh, yeah, that is.
And the Courier lot, without any road frontage, was pre-zoning.
Yeah, I mean, it's an unusual history. There's some things that were
Mhm.
interesting. So it'll be, we'll see. it looks challenging, but we'll see.
Sorry. All right, well,
Okay,
sorry, hopefully we didn't waste a whole lot of money and wouldn't have gone this far. I thought it was such a cut and dry thing, that's what I'm frustrated with.
no, I
I'm
understand.
sorry, thank you.
I'm sorry it's been that way. All right, so. Next on the agenda are the minutes. Does anybody have minute issues?
I'll move them. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Yes, abstain.
Yes, so Tim abstains. And, we have the option of either doing, going to the, why don't we go to the build out next? It's what's on there anyway, so.
Okay.
You have, I saw you have
I have,
some nice stuff on
well, I
it.
don't know if it's nice stuff, but,
Oh my gosh. More color.
more color, well, color jumps out at you and makes
The
it,
only thing that's
It
gonna keep
grabs
me
you by
awake.
the throat, yes.
and if you look at the data tables afterwards, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, so, and pictures, I think.
I like pictures.
Pictures just, to me, make more sense, you can see things better.
How was your,
Did you get a copy, Dave?
how was your analysis, what was your analysis of lot? Lot right there.
40111? Again, if I had a new plotter, I would have been able to do bigger, but
So, anyway, this, I think this
Isn't
is,
that lot we were talking about?
this is great.
Oh, we were.
That's a-
Low and high,
that's smart.
high development, high development.
High means you can do
No,
more, right?
This is
Right,
where
okay.
we're right in the context.
because we're trying to be, I didn't wanna, throw out, high development potential, or I just said high or low.
Right,
What I did, is I went through and I looked at, my septic analysis based on the lot loading, the maximum lot coverage, the calculated maximum lot coverage, the road frontage, and the actual area of the lot. And I used, I basically broke down those numbers in groups of 5. With the exception of the septic, I did 10. And I assigned a value to that lot based on 1 through 5. So when you had a high, with the gallons per day, the higher gallons per day, got a higher number. The maximum lot coverage, the higher the maximum lot coverage, the higher the number. And same with the frontage and same with the area. I then just added those numbers up and divided by 4 to get an average rating. So we could do different math, it's really not,
It's a measure.
it's a measure.
And what are the numbers that are on here, the 4082?
Those are the lot numbers, so the map and lot numbers. Just because that way, if you go 2 pages in, I actually have what the ratings were, and there's some notes. And so, I just wanted people to be able to, if you're looking at the
So the 0 rating is unbuildable.
0 rating, and let me go back to those also. If you again go 2 pages in, I have the ratings listed from 0 to 6 in that order. And I've actually put down for all the zeros why I've taken them out.
Right. Okay.
And so it's most of the reasons is town property.
Right.
Can't sell it, right?
What?
Can't sell it? Or-
In some cases, no, but maybe, but at the moment, I just consider it non-developable. And a lot of it is pretty small, well, cemeteries, that would be kind of hard. The highway garage, yes, that could be.
Dave, so trying to get a sense of how this relates to that.
If you look on the front page, there is a very vague red line that you can see the outline of the Lyme Common
You gotta
District.
really hunt for it.
Yes.
Oh, I see, I see.
It's very hard,
Okay.
it doesn't show up well.
Oh, so this, yeah, so that's what I was, so this is even more helpful because you've gone outside.
I went outside a little bit.
Yeah, that's great.
Because we're looking at
Yes.
also what could be expanded, so I did include.
That's great, that's what I was hoping.
Yeah. So,
That's fantastic.
and now the other thing I did, second map, shows some of the topology of the area. Basically a hill shade underneath it and contour lines. I did that only as a reference, so when you're looking at lots and saying, gee, why would this be a lower value than something next door? You can actually see that there's some of these are fairly steep, or there are areas that are steep, and therefore make it more difficult to develop.
Like 20123, the green thing.
Let's see where 23,
It's near Market Street, across from the church.
1, 2,
Something going up the
3,
hill.
it's dark green,
They're green.
yeah.
It's still in the low part of Market Street.
Yeah, and when you look at it, you can see that it's got some pretty good contours on it.
right, exactly, that's, and so you have some, it gets kind of steep.
So David, so the same thought though, these here and here have, especially this lot, has quite a bit going on.
Yeah, that's actually Paul Mayo's lot that we were talking about tonight,
But anyways, but it's got quite a bit of, change in elevation.
Right, and again, that's why I wanted to show this as a,
But it still shows up as high.
it shows up as high
Both these
because,
two, oh, go ahead.
the size of it. Anytime you have the larger lot, it's going to, it's gonna be, the area is going to bump up the rating. The gallons per day are going to be higher because of
Area, septic,
septic,
total
lot,
square footage,
the
yeah.
the lot coverage.
But then there's no devaluation for topography.
Right, that's, would be another step to
Okay, that's.
going forward.
Okay.
And that's, again, why I put this in here, is because if you look at those lots, some of that does kind of jump out, and
So would it be possible to modify this, adding that element? Is that a ton of work, or is it?
Well, the good news is most of, Lyme Common District is relatively flat.
right, I can add.
As you go outside of it, it tends to, get a little bit more,
David, could I ask you to go back and just say again how you did this? I was taken by the beauty of it, and I wasn't listening as carefully as I should have,
Is
so.
I looked at, like I say, the gallons per day lot loading for septic, lot coverage, road frontage.
Well, slow down again. So gallons per day,
Gallons per day, the maximum lot coverage, the road frontage, and the area of the lot. And for gallons per day, I broke that up, because that had a very large variation, so I broke that up into 10 groups. Basically, I looked at, I broke it up based on, 150 gallon increments. As you started out with 0 to 150, 151 to 300, 301 to 450, because each one of those would represent a bedroom. So, an additional bedroom.
makes sense.
So, I broke those up into 10 groups. Everything else I just broke up into 5 groups. And basically, I have a computer, I look at it and say, here, break this number up into 10 equal groups, and then I would adjust to make, instead of 5,211, I'd say, okay, it's 5,000.
So I know it's a bit sort of complicated, but even though you broke the septic part into 10 groups and the frontage into 5, at the end of the day, does the sum of them equal the same weighting?
Were they 0 to 10 and 0 to 5, were they?
It'd be 0 to 10 and 0 to 5. So yes, the septic's going to weigh a little heavier.
That's
Is
twice as much.
Is that intentional?
Um,
And do we?
I don't know if it's important. I
well,
just-
it
I
might
ju-
be, because
Thank you.
I wasn't, I had been looking at the septic for so long in my mind.
Well, if you decide that that's the driving criteria, right,
Yeah.
if that's the primary criteria, then David's logic is whole.
We should talk about what kind of weights we wanna put on these 4 different categories then.
Okay.
Right.
Yes, but,
And David,
so,
you can
so
read
let
it.
me see if I understand.
Yeah, I can,
So the gallons per day is basically the number of bedrooms that parcel could support.
Basically.
If you've got a 2, if you come
Yeah,
out
if
of
you
the
got-
second group,
right, it'd
you
be,
could have 2 bedrooms. If you came out in the 6th group, you could
Yeah.
have 6 bedrooms. And then the maximum lot coverage is a measure of the square footage already covered, or
No.
the spare?
the spare, no, it is a measurement of how much, if it was a vacant lot, that you could put on it.
Okay,
So
so,
I have not taken into account the development that's already there. That's,
Okay.
I do have that number.
So it's the
Actually, I
footprint.
don't have that number. I
Yeah,
used
right,
the
that's hard
number
to get,
from,
right.
that was given, the Upper Valley Lake Sunday Regional Planning Commission came up in theirs, and in my spot checking, I found about 30% are bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
So a high,
So
No,
David's
30%.
calculation is like an absolute maximum,
Right, no, they're,
regardless of current.
when they went through and tried to calculate, or went and through the tax cards and figured out the lot coverage, 30% of their time they did it wrong.
yeah.
Right, because it's difficult to do. And,
No, I found things, where, they're off by 1 digit, so, I assume that it's an entering number. I found some that I cannot, no matter how I calculate it, I can't figure out where they got the number. When you look at the tax card, it'll list all the floors of a house. So you don't add all the floors of the house to get your footprint, you look just the basement floor. You add decks, you add patios, that type of thing, and there are a few, you don't add the basement, which will be on the tax card. So it takes a little bit of understanding of the tax card. And I don't know, there's, patios are not covered under, they're actually excluded from the zoning ordinance, so you don't include a patio in lot coverage. Decks you do. So they're,
I think you're really, keep every meeting kind of getting a little bit narrower and
right.
narrower. But I think you're doing a great job of focusing
Yes.
what we're trying to achieve. I think the simplest question right now is, should we double weight septic capacity over lot capacity? Or should we equal weight it?
and I think, I had, like I said, in my mind, I had been looking at the septic by bedroom, so that's the way I weighted it.
Yes,
Looking back at
but-
that may not have been the right
No,
thing to do.
no, maybe-
Yeah.
It's not that's not a criticism, it's a question
It may
how,
be-
how do we wanna, so what
so
is the
that-
sense of the board?
So that's actually why I wanna understand exactly what these metrics mean, so I can understand how I'd wanna do it. So maximum lot coverage, this is undeveloped lot, this
Yeah.
has bumpty bump square feet, it's got whatever,
Yep.
and that's the lot coverage, and then you divided them up into 5
5 groups.
equal sized bins?
I looked at I actually let the computer do it. It can, the way my GIS software works is I can say, basically use some natural breaks in the data.
Okay.
So it will kind of pick up and weight the
Okay,
breaks.
so,
So they're not necessarily equal.
not the same number in each bin,
Right.
but there were the natural breaks for, okay. And, good. Same thing for road frontage.
Yeah.
That's obviously a straightforward number to
Yeah.
get. And then you apply that same natural break.
Same natural breaks.
Okay, and area of the lot, again,
Yeah.
same, okay.
So for everybody on the board, do we wanna have, do we wanna have the gallons for the septic be double weighted or even? What are people's thoughts on that?
So as we just saw, some of these should be pretty definitive, like, road frontage should be pretty definitive for development on some of these lots, right?
Well,
Are there ways we can
Well,
sharpen it by, you know,
Sharing across the road?
yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
or maybe, did you zero out some lots based on road frontage or things like that? I mean, was that?
I didn't, no, I did not. If the road frontage was, you know, like if you look at,
My point is, if road frontage was 0 and everything else was 10,
Really good.
shouldn't it still be a 0?
Right.
well,
Yeah, but you couldn't
it's an
build.
existing lot. And so road frontage being 0, if it has access across another lot, then no, it shouldn't be 0. Because you have,
Or maybe.
a good example, and I zeroed it out, but 20183, or is it 83, no, 63, which is the,
20163?
yeah, it's one of the non-developable lots, the big ones to the north, it's on the right-hand side.
Okay, that's all marsh, right? That's all the.
Well, no, it's actually, the majority of that lot has conservation easement on it,
Okay.
so that's why it's
That's why it's
Okay,
zero.
that's
it's 0. If you look where, down between 62 and 65 along the East Thetford Road, it's road frontage,
Oh,
which is,
Is it 10 feet?
yeah, which, I can actually tell you, what is it, 163.
Is that little driveway that goes into?
Right, it has 19 feet of road frontage,
Right.
but it opens up, and if that conservation easement wasn't there, it actually would have been a prime lot for development. It would have been actually, the marsh takes a small portion of it, but the,
How would it be developable if it only has 19 feet?
you could put in a subdivision road.
Okay.
So, but getting back to the original point, I'm not sure where you were going with that. Do we wanna,
I'm just wondering if there are ways we can use, I think we can glean more information than simply adding the 4 indices together. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how
Honestly,
to
you're
combine it.
Much more of an expert on.
so what would you suggest?
Well,
It is
I
actually,
Exactly, that's why
just
I-
gave you an example, and it may not be a valid example, but there may be cases where the 0, for example, a 0 in one category might yield
Right.
a lot that otherwise
So-
looks perfect, might yield it totally undevelopable.
One of the things,
And maybe David's already gone through and.
well, no,
Those
one of the
out.
things we discussed, and I'm not sure whether you were here, was at a certain point, it just became clear that too much information was just gonna lead into a death spiral. So we kinda cut back,
Right.
and we wanna just get a general idea. So
So how many, aren't that, what if we could look at these, could you redo this table, and instead of putting in the sum, the total rating, just put in all 4 columns?
Yeah, like this one right here.
like that one there.
So we can see it and say, oh, this one looks excellent on 3
So which
characteristics.
pages were you
But it
just?
has
This is
zero-
my
has
own
0
personal
on
copy that I have
septic.
not,
Maybe
Okay,
there's one that has 0 on septic and looks great otherwise.
so yeah, maybe
0
you
on septic
could
if
is-
you want, I can photocopy this right now and.
would people like to find that
Well,
helpful?
no, I think we're.
Well, I'm not gonna go through them, we're not gonna go through them all right now.
Yeah,
No,
I
but-
think
but
where
so that
Eric's
we would
going,
have
and
them to
I
take home.
tried a little bit in the past couple meetings, was to help us give David some criteria
Right.
so that we were clearer. And so, David keeps bringing stuff to us, and then we keep sort of like
Send you back?
sending it back. It's like,
Yeah.
no, wrong pebble, go down to the beach, try again. And it's because we haven't really defined what our criteria are. And so I think if we just talk and get a better feel of what the criteria should be, it'll help
Well, this
David.
is what the process has been, but, I mean, I feel like
We're getting,
we should be pretty close at this point.
pretty darn close.
And really, and I'm just speaking for myself, what I'm after is, pretty much 6, 5, maybe 4, I'm not sure about 4.
He'd be
but
happy with 3 numbers.
6 and 5 and, everything underneath there, maybe 6, 5, and 4. And anything else, or just,
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, one of the bigger bugaboos right now is that we overweighted septic.
Yeah,
so we can.
But that might be the right
I don't,
answer.
I don't think we should.
We
Overweight
can
that, we get
easily,
double.
you know what, I say easily, I don't know how easy it is.
Shouldn't see less than an
But-
hour to
no, I
redo
know,
all
But,
this.
no, what if we have it with the doubled septic, what if we also have it as 1-to-1? And then we can look at that and say,
And part of the logic on the septic thing was that, I just a little bit heard from David, it was a little bit hard. It took a lot of work to try to get it, for him to understand what
Right.
exactly we could do on each lot. So I just, of all the things, that was one of the maybe more harder to define grayer
Definitely,
areas.
definitely.
And so to overweight it, I'm a little bit, if it was like neutral weight, then I'd say, okay. But to overweight it, I'm a little bit like, well, of all the things we can't measure, we can measure everything else.
does that make sense?
No, that makes
But-
perfect
but the
sense.
thing
to me.
is,
So,
have a hard time.
okay, so if you would, let's get the one-on-one as well. And then let's commit to not taking a U-turn at that
I
Well,
point.
mean,
and
at some point, if you look at these, with the 4, 5s, and 6s, there's 3 pages of them with 20 properties on a page, so we're only talking about 60 properties.
Right.
Yeah,
At some point, you take those,
One
and you
by
look at,
one.
you look at them individually, and you say yay or nay, or
yeah,
maybe,
exactly.
and that's it. And then, so at some point, we just need to sit down and
Yeah, well, we're getting
hash
close
it
to
out.
We're
it.
getting
We
close
got
to
a
that,
computer, get up, pull up the tax cards, we all know the properties, talk about it.
Well, there's a
and-
couple of issues with that, and I don't think you were here for that. We
About whose property?
we don't wanna get too deeply into anybody's property,
Right.
both as not to upset them and both as not to put the town in a position where people will say, oh, you said we could do this. We don't know.
It was meant to be
I
a
was here,
it's
last
what
time, I heard, I was.
Yeah, it's what I call a scoping
Yeah.
exercise for the,
Yep.
for the.
So we wanna keep it, we don't wanna get too fine.
Okay,
And that's how it's evolved. I mean, originally, I thought, I think we thought we were gonna get very fine.
But the second map does cause for me to think about, should we add another criteria when it comes to topography?
For slope or some other topography, or
how hard
develop.
is it for you to put over?
Well, just because a couple big areas that come out, most of it's outside of the common
Yeah,
district, or half of it.
Or something with all ledge or something.
Right.
I mean, when you do area, can you take out the ag soils and the steep slopes?
Oh, I think that's just getting, look. the-
Well,
the-
there are no ag soils in Lyme Common District, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing is, where the areas are, most of those
Or outside.
are outside. And for those, I think, we can do, we can make some, we can do some research and assumption about what's feasible there.
Well, I think Kevin's trying to find a way to apply analysis to the whole group rather than have us look individually at individual properties.
Yeah.
Which is what we don't wanna do.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's what I was trying to show here, that, there are certain areas that seem more appropriate for development than, the way I've shaded it. You look at the downtown areas and, you see a lot of the blues and dark greens, and you say, okay, those are not great for development, but
Can
if
you do a slope rating of some type? I mean, typically you have either average slope or maximum slope,
I have-
or bizarre slope, or whatever you might want. If you added something like that, that
In the-
would,
the
might
soil
knock some of
data.
these back.
there's an average slope for a soil group. It doesn't,
I think we're gonna start getting into
Which-
some really.
well,
Well,
that-
the
that's
reason I was
the
asking about the
number.
slope though is because it also sometimes has an effect on septic. That if you're on the,
Well, I think
if
David's
you're,
right.
if you're on a hillside like this, you're
It's-
probably not gonna get a septic system that's gonna work on it.
That's been accounted for in the soil data. The soil data has a slope assigned to it.
Okay.
And when I calculate the lot loading, that takes into account areas that are very steep, or that soil type is very steep, so the ability for it to be a good septic drops down. So that is part
So
of
I was
the,
just asking, is it, maybe,
I-
maybe if we had one more weighting in here, one more thing that had to do with slope soils, whatever,
Yeah.
that might add some info.
what I
So
might be
then-
able to do, and I'd say Mike, because I haven't played with it yet, I can create a, basically, it would just be a map that shows the slope, the area of slope. Let me go grab something I have one in my office I can show you that would be, I think, easier to explain.
So, taking this, rather than taking this, not we're taking it backwards, but rather than refining the criteria, what are we gonna do with these, what do these numbers mean, how do we interpret them? What, if we were gonna write a report based on these numbers?
Well,
I think
what-
it's
what
the
is-
build
so-
out.
Right.
it's the
Right,
build
so
out.
what-
It's the build out, in other words, it's the.
Before so instead of nitpicking about what's going into the numbers, maybe the nitpicking doesn't matter
It
based
doesn't
on how
matter,
we're
it
gonna
matters
interpret this.
less than it
Yeah.
seems, because what we've discussed is we wanna
What are
come
we gonna do with it?
out of this with being able to say in general, and I think it was Kevin who put it this way, that, you know, we think we can get between A and B number of lots, you know, or you could develop A and B number of units, lots, whatever we wanna,
So
whatever.
How do we get there from 1 to 6?
Well, once we get this settled,
Right.
we can then go in and make assumptions about
So
what we
from-
can do on each of the,
So is the next step to go to the tables and say, okay,
I think
this
so.
one is,
I think so, and maybe to that table that David was talking about.
This,
you just had to get out your LiDAR, didn't you?
no, well, this is, I didn't do that, this was something presented, the board actually saw this.
You did, yeah, that driveway looks nice going in, by the way.
It does. This was Tim Beck's driveway, and this is, again, this is the LiDAR data, and yes, I absolutely love the LiDAR data.
Except you know what, from right here, you cannot see the driveway going this way. From like 50 yards out, you cannot see it,
But the thing is, that
because there's a crest right here.
At least
Yep.
that's the road.
There's a
but
crest
the
right
question
here,
is,
you can't
can you
it.
see?
The
when-
top of a car,
Right, that's, it's, when you look at the regulation, it refers to a certain height.
height, right? Maybe he's gonna drive a Tesla in there. And it's 2 feet tall.
Is this the new drive, the one they've
Yeah.
just constructed?
Yep. Anyway, this
Let's
is the
not
type
worry
of,
about that.
I was just curious.
looking at the data. You know, I can look at the maximum slope above, by the, you know, that the LiDAR data creates, and I can create this exact same type of thing. And then I think I should be able to calculate the area of each one of the, you know, so I can look at it and say if the slope is over 15, 20, 30, whatever you decide, calculate how much of that is in a lot. And then,
I'm just concerned that you're doing make work at this point.
Yeah, okay.
To go back to your,
That's really cool, thank you for showing this to us, I bet we don't need it.
yeah.
that's fine, again,
To
I'm
go
saying
back-
what I can probably
To go back to
do.
Eric's
Yes,
point,
right.
what we had discussed last time is that we were going to get to a general place, and then we may have to go in more specifically, but then we were gonna back out of that. We were gonna gather the information, but not associate it with specific lots.
Should we ask David to do that, and then David can present us with a summary table saying there are 5 lots where we think we could put 3 or more houses on, 6 lots where we could put 2 houses on.
Well, we're just at the, I mean, now is the time where we're,
Well, the only thing that or my issue with that type of summary table is if the board is trying to decide whether the Lyme Common District is too small, maybe needs some expansion, knowing where that is, I think would be helpful, where, you know. there
What do you
may-
about that too?
yeah, but I think we
He's asking
will,
what we're gonna do with it.
I
so
think
what
we're
is
gonna
the-
address that anyway, because we're gonna have to go, we are gonna have to go in and look at lots. I mean,
Right.
these,
Yes.
anything that's this big we're gonna have to go in and check.
Right, I agree.
And then, but then we need to back out.
Well, the other thing is too, that you haven't accounted for existing buildings, right?
I have not accounted for
So at some
existing,
point, we should take, you know, we're gonna have to figure that, if we know how much more we can expand, we have to take that out.
I actually, like I say, the Regional Planning Commission did a calculation. I am not comfortable with their data.
So-
I would need to go back through all of these and read.
But again, let's just try to say, can we just save some work here? Realistically, the things we're looking, what are your two, the orange and the red? Realistically, those are the most important ones.
Yeah.
So we can look and see what's on, I mean, it's not a lot of, these are all lots, these are single lots, these big ones?
There are some that, the lot lines don't show up really well. If you look at this one, this is actually two lots. There's one lot
But
that
it's
goes
not,
in.
we're not talking about, it's not 10 lots on it.
No.
So it's gonna be, what we're doing is we're taking out a scoop that are significant figures. And we can go into those significant figures and, we can see what's on there. And then get at least a better sense of what might go on there.
Okay. So I think, to follow up with what Eric said and actually what you said, our goal is to say how many residents, how many new residences, how many new, whatever.
Whatever, we have to-
whatever,
we have to
need-
refine
and-
that.
And that's,
That's the
I think,
challenge.
our next
Yes.
order of business. That will be determined by how much spare lot coverage there is. Stuff will be ruled out because, there's no septic capacity on that
Or
lot.
there's a steep slope.
Or there's a steep slope, or they don't have any road frontage, I mean, but I think, can I finish? I mean, I'll finish and then, and so, reading up on build-out, the assumption is that every landowner will subdivide their parcel to the max.
Well, that is,
And so that's where
yeah.
we're going, and
well,
so, well,
not
is-
necessarily,
well,
but
that's.
roughly,
But we're figuring out what's possible, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
roughly. Because we're not gonna get too much into the weeds.
that's right, but I mean, it's
In
like,
general-
you got 10 acres here, you can probably get 6 or 7
General,
in 1
yes.
acre parcel.
So,
Yeah,
yes,
good. I think it's important to look at development, existing development on parcels, because if it's already developed, we're not gonna get it. And so David has the area of the lot and the maximum lot coverage allowed. We need to subtract out the existing development, which is a pain because those numbers are not accurate. Third thing is.
well, let me stop you there, because one possibility is for us to say, we're not really that concerned with the low end. And then we're not, and what we're,
Maybe.
what we're very concerned
Okay.
about is the high end, and that might change.
And that gets to my third point, John. How do we handle parcels that are partially in and partially out of the Lyme Common District?
Yeah, we have to make that distinction clearly.
Um,
But
But
one,
those are my
one
concerns.
possibility in addressing that, because we're looking at this as that we're actually, one of the things is that can be considered out of this is an expansion of the common, in which case those could be treated as part of the common, and so that we could see what could be developed if we expanded into those areas.
Mhm.
So then it could be the same criteria.
Well, I mean, I guess I'd say, let's see if we could subdivide them right along the border of the Lyme Common District and treat those parcels, the interior parcels first.
Okay.
And then if we wanted to say, oh yeah, if we could,
I mean, I would say we don't really, well, I don't wanna say that. Okay, yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable,
I mean, I can take and, it is a very simple process to clip out everything within the Lyme Common District and cut everything at the border.
I think that should be the first,
Yeah,
yeah, we should know that,
yeah,
right?
And then we could, start from there.
okay,
So, I mean, that's,
okay, so let's clip to the border.
And then the open question is, if there's a lot that's partly in but partly out, do you
Yeah.
ever say, well, why don't we make that whole lot in or out? Or
Well, I think
something
that's-
like, or
I-
let them decide, they can subdivide it, or,
Yeah, but the road frontage changes, doesn't it?
yeah.
well, the road frontage requirement changes, basically, the zoning says if you have a lot that straddles a district boundary,
Yeah,
you have two choices. You can apply the rules for the district to the area you're developing. Or you can apply the, whichever district has more strict rules, you can apply that to the entire lot. That's up to the owner how they wanna
okay.
proceed. So that's their choices, at the time of development. So anything that's in the line, well,
It's like this orange one over here on the far right, there's got a chunk in there, and then there's a big chunk that's out.
exactly. Now, that one,
So both of those up there are that way.
right,
Part in, part out.
part in, part out. This is the red one is actually a very good example. That's United Developmental Services, just up the street here. Their development is within the Lyme Common District. So they applied the rules to the Lyme Common District to that part of the lot, and it's an institutional use, it's allowed. If they were to develop to the north, they wouldn't have been able to do it.
Right.
Unless they applied all the rules for the Lyme Common District to that whole lot. Because the Lyme Common District would be the rules are stricter in the Lyme Common District than outside the district. You know, the
If
rules
they
are-
wanna-
Yes, they are. You have a maximum building footprint that is 4,500 square feet instead of 7,000. You have 100 feet
Right,
of road
but the lot
frontage.
size is smaller.
Lot size is smaller, but
So you might be able to subdivide.
But it's a
But,
less
yes.
strict, that's a less strict requirement.
yeah,
But Dave, if they wanted to develop, what you were talking about before, if they wanted to develop the area that's not in the Lyme Common District, they could develop that, just apply, and then apply it with the rural district. They would just apply the.
well, they could,
the rural district.
they
to
could,
that
they
area.
could apply the rural district.
Right. To the part that's out of the common district, yeah.
Right, you can do it either way. You can,
Right.
at your discretion as the owner, you can choose which way you
Right.
wanna.
Okay, so I'd like to what, let's call them action items. So what do we, I mean, what I think I'm hearing is we wanna clip to the border.
Yep.
Do we wanna subtract existing development at this point? Is that even feasible?
Okay, that's going to take me
Okay,
a
so-
fair amount of
so
time.
we
I
don't-
can, it's not,
But that's important at some point.
yeah,
At
it's
some
not,
point,
I don't have faith in
Yeah,
the numbers that are there.
so then, maybe we should just, well, how does everybody wanna handle that? I don't wanna send David every week on another expedition. I mean, I'm feeling like generally we're getting into the area where we wanna get.
I think the one other thing we need to look at is, basically, reality on these lots. If you look at some of them, the numbers like 20111, that's at the very east end of the common, it's the Lyme Inn. It is one that shows as a fairly high ability for development.
So where's it on
Where
here?
is it?
It's going to be,
Yeah, it's,
go back
right
to
here.
Orange one
Is
right
that-
there.
Oh, okay.
when you look at the actual lot, there's a bit of wetland, and I don't know, again, if that, my GIS data is not perfect, and sometimes that stuff doesn't show up. Wasn't on the inventory that was created. It might not have been big enough. But they're really not gonna develop into that wetland. The area that they've developed is pretty much it. It may have some beyond the wetland going up the
So,
hill.
but this is what I'm getting at. is, I don't think we're not gonna have to be geniuses to figure, once we get the oranges and the, whatever that color is, I'll just call it red.
Tangerine.
What?
Oh, that's the other. Whatever. Right, yeah.
That, you know, we're not talking about a lot, we can just, all of us sit down at a meeting when we have, you know, an hour, and go, this is the Lyme end, forget it, you know, it's not a realistic thing, we just cross it off.
And then the same thing with, 20179.1, which is the large one to the,
Which one here?
Yeah,
it's gonna be this one right here.
Okay,
That's, right out here, again, you got into some areas that are wetland, some of that area to the north absolutely is developable. But I think that has, as it shows up.
so that might peel back to a tangerine.
Right, and I think that, those are the things that you have to kind of, all the lots that have a fair amount of developability, you have to kind of look at. And again, the one that's owned by the Congregational Church, that it kind of hooks from Route 10 and then goes south and then comes back to Route 10. The real, are you really gonna be able to develop all
Right.
that land back in there?
So,
So it's,
That was sort of what I was getting at with the slope, it is a reality thing, it's either slope, wet, there's like maybe 5 or 6
Right.
things that you would
But
lump into reality check.
yeah.
yeah, and I think people have enough microscopic knowledge of the common where we can do that by hand, because we're down to like, what are they, like 10 to 15 properties?
Yeah.
We can do that by hand.
Okay.
And I think, and then, because there are things, I left the data, I didn't make any judgment calls on any of these, but there are some, again, there's a lot here on High Street that's, again, high development, it's Katie Jenks's lot. As soon as you go behind your house, it just drops off.
Right.
And trying to get,
So why don't we, at the next meeting we have time, or maybe we can just make a list of these properties and then just go through them.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be,
Right, so there were two issues that came up with this, was do we want David to clip it, and do we want the summary number to be reweighted? with
that
the
actually-
set conditions?
well,
So do we
I
want,
th- I
do we wanna
think-
have that information? for
I
the
think we
final
said
meeting?
that you were gonna do the reweighting, so it would be 1-to-1, and you said that'd take you about an hour?
yeah, that's about an hour's worth.
Okay, so
That's
the
not-
answer is yes to that.
That one?
What was the other one?
The
To clip
clipping, and that,
Town district.
I don't know, do we wanna clip it, because,
the clipping, that's going to take me a while longer, not because, the clipping itself is very quick. But anything that straddles the border, the information is based on the full lot, not the clip lot, so I'll have to go through.
I'm not sure we need it clipped. We can, again, when we're looking at it, we can take out the properties that are obviously not gonna be helpful, and then we can go in and look at the more detailed stuff.
Right, so but the question is, what development potential do we have in the common district? What's the better information to have for answering that question?
Well, yeah, is that what we want, just the common district? I mean, is that what we're looking at?
That's the start of
It
it.
seems to me that would be the best starting place, because you're saying, here's what we have. And
Yes,
then going
that's-
forward, then we can look
That's
outside.
undeniable.
I mean, maybe we can eyeball it, this, which lot, 4082 here on the surface looks like a huge lot.
Which one is that?
It's the one way up on the top,
Oh, yeah.
right?
This one?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a huge lot, it's got
Is
here
it Earl's,
in
is that
and
Earl's
out.
building?
Which one is that, David?
That is actually, Sandy Kelly, well, was Sandy Kelsey's
Sandy
house
Kelsey's,
across.
yeah.
Has-
But the question is,
That's got a
That's
ton
not
of, that's got
wetland.
all wetlands in the back
I know,
there.
Well, it's
I know,
got
but
some
let's
wetlands in the back.
pretend there's no wetlands there. How would we deal with the issue of where the district break falls on that property, right? Because that's the question we're gonna have to
Well,
answer on this
the
lot. So how
question
would
you
we
have
deal
to
with
do
that?
is you'd look at that first and say, is the part that's in the common developable? And if the answer is, no, that's the wet part, the good part's in the back,
Yeah, which is the
Then-
case.
right, then.
So
then
that
you
is
would
the good
say-
part.
Then you'd say, oh, well, that one kind of falls out because all the good land is
Right.
outside of the district. But Or it could be the other way around, which is all the good land is in the front, the stuff in the back is huge, we don't even need to worry about it.
Let me do this, there's 1, 2, 3, 4,
Not that many.
5,
There's hardly any.
6, 7,
And
8
we know them all.
properties
We
that
know
are-
them all.
That are straddling the line, so let's just keep it like this.
Let's keep it like this.
David can redo the weighting,
Right,
And
and
the
that's
next
all
time we
you
have
need to
time,
do. Next
we
time, we're
get our
gonna go
hands
through
dirty.
all of the higher developable potential ones and make judgments
Yeah.
based on what's obvious.
What I will do is I will do some aerial photography. We have everything with the contours to give us an idea of slope. Aerial will give you an idea of what's really on the ground. Is it wet, is it, you can see a lot of that.
and we're trying to figure out in this next session, how many bedrooms we can put.
Units, yeah, bedrooms, units.
Bedrooms.
We'll
Some
have to
measure
go
of
over that.
housing, some measure of housing,
Yes,
how much
some
we can
measure of
put
housing.
on this lot
Right.
in the common
Yes.
district, or perhaps just outside the common district.
Yes, and another nightmarish element to add is that, do we want to consider that these things can be mixed use? Many, some of they could be commercial. So,
I think, go ahead.
no, I'm done.
I think in the reading I've done, build out is generally only residential. So how much residential stuff could you put here?
Right,
And so-
that may be what, but we.
This is for the housing chapter, right?
It is for the housing chapter.
Maybe we should just do
Let's just do housing.
square
Okay.
footprint.
Well,
And then
let's not
cover-
get it, we'll cover that next time. But what we're leaving this section of the meeting with is David's gonna do the one-to-one thing. And then next time we'll have 2 of these maps. Is that what would happen as a result?
Oh, I would just redo these.
You'd redo these with a one-to-one, so we'd have the old one with a 2-to-1. And then we will look at the handful really of properties on the edge and make judgments about them. That's our next step. 'Cause
And
that's-
can you do, when you print out the data, can you do the raw data?
Yep.
We can see that?
Yep, absolutely.
As well as both indices?
Right,
Yep, and I had done just that because I didn't know
yeah, so
how much
that's fine. So next
data
time
you wanted to
you'll,
see.
next time you'll give us that and the new map. So, okay,
So that's-
let's shut that door. No, let's not.
So if it's really gonna be a build-out analysis, at the end of the day, to know what we can do incrementally more, we're gonna have to make either know or make some assumptions of what's existing.
That's what we're saying, that's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, at some
Yeah.
point, that has to be taken out.
We're gonna have to,
Yeah, I am,
But-
at some point in time, I'm gonna have to go
But-
through and
So,
redo.
okay, so that's a true statement. So the next thing is, how far off was the Upper Valley, like some piece study? I mean, could we accept 20-30% off? I'm just asking.
Yeah, it really varied.
Like, how did they extract, for each property, how did they extract how many?
Well, there's where my
Unit
problem was, that they went through and used basically the tax card, it's all online. It's on the-
Bedrooms, bathrooms,
No, just basically, there's a listing of, it shows an outline of the building and shows the floors.
Mhm.
Or they're coded in such a way you can see the floors and the area of each.
Mm.
And so what you should do is go through and say, all right, here's the first floor. That is absolutely footprint. Then you look at the other areas, it says there's a basement. You don't use that as a footprint because you've counted that in the first one. There's decks, there's patios, and you add those individual numbers up.
I'm with you. But at the end of the day, and we haven't really answered this question, we're trying to figure out units or bedroom, bathroom,
we're gonna, but
combination.
we're too late in the night to go there. I think next time we should consider we have to make the decision what our housing criteria is. And we are, at some point, we are going to have to figure out how we're gonna approach the existing development.
Well, I think we're gonna need to know that number, and again, to answer your question, how far off? Sometimes, I think it was a data entry error where they hit a 4 instead of a 5 somewhere in the number. Because I saw those. Some of them, I could not figure out where they got the number, and it was off by 1,000 square feet. And over. And so I don't know, I couldn't come up with any combinations of numbers.
So John, I'm with you for the next step. I'm okay, going through this one more one-to-one ratio, get a different color thing. But it gets to Eric's questioning is, once we get the data, how, what's it gonna tell us and what are we gonna use it for? So I'm perfectly willing to leave that for the next meeting. But I think we gotta start, we have to start thinking about, what do we consider a unit
Yes.
for what's existing, and what are we gonna call a unit, given
Yes.
a certain criteria for what is build-outable?
But we'll do that when we're fresher.
So can I ask one more question about what we were just talking about with the data from Tucker Valley, Lake Sunapee? Is there any systematic way in which there are mistakes, errors in the data?
No.
Or is it random?
It's random.
If it's random, it should average out.
No, but that's true.
Depending,
Right, if it's, right, so that's,
it's one way of
a good
statistically kind
point.
of smoothing it all.
That's a good
Could
point.
you tell whether mostly they were over, or mostly they were under?
It varied.
Yeah,
And so,
Yeah,
So is that
if
true?
we have that, we should start with it and see what it looks like.
it might, that's why,
That's
part
a
of the
good
reason why I was
point.
asking, it might be your first pass where you just say, assume this data is correct, apply it, and even though it's got 3 or 4 mistakes, individually, you could then look at them and say, that doesn't look right, because we know the
We can
properties.
correct the obvious one.
Well, like I said,
Well, no,
there's
you
some
don't
that I
do
know that are
that.
wrong that I can go in and correct,
Like-
Right, but if their mistakes are truly random, and if you make non-random corrections, then you're biasing the data.
Okay.
So.
It's just a thought.
Right,
And that-
I like that because
Yeah, I do
we
too.
have a measure of how much is developed. We can look at the total square footage of the parcel, subtract out the developed, and that gives
what remains.
what remains.
I
It
think
gives
that's
us
a great
number.
point.
And if it turns out that this little teeny parcel seems to have 3.5 acres remaining,
Mhm.
we'll look at that and we'll say, whoa, there's a mistake.
Yeah, but then we're,
Well,
No,
right,
but if
right.
but if it shows that there's, the map shows that there's 10 units, 10 bedrooms for this parcel, and we're like,
I
that
don't
doesn't
think
look
so.
If
right.
it shows
Yeah, right.
there are lots of big errors, then maybe redo all of them.
Yeah, right.
right.
Yeah, I was trying to
Good.
think of a
So-
simple way to
So I think,
use.
I like your idea. So David, if you feel okay, that I'm certainly
Yeah,
okay with
I'm
you
not,
just
I'm fine.
taking their number and just,
Yeah,
Does anybody object
Well,
to?
at some point, we've gotta go from, here's the gross developable, to here's what's already developable, to find the
Yeah, for
incremental.
sure.
Right, we have to.
So does anybody object to the mistake-laden approach that we are endorsing?
I don't know.
I do not.
I think it was just philosophically thrown out an idea.
No, this is, modern statistics is based on,
Right,
It's
so,
based on
all right,
this,
so
so-
that, we'll try that out.
Yep.
Yeah, let's try.
And we can also do is, as I'm going through stuff, I can take 10 minutes every once in a while and work on a table off to one side and clean up. And if it doesn't take very long, I might be able to get through it fairly quickly. Maybe not, I don't know, I haven't really, I haven't played with any, the numbers that I have, I didn't change them, I left them as is.
you probably got enough to do for next meeting.
Yep.
Right.
Well, I mean, changing the way
The
that,
weighting is easy.
that's easy,
Yeah,
and
right.
I can actually even, even the clipping, most everything, I don't typically create processes that are all manual. I try to write a program to do it because I like the repeatability, and if I make a mistake, I can just run the code again.
Or change the variable.
Right, it makes my life a whole lot easier, so.
All right, so just, so we're all on the same page, what is your understanding of what you're gonna do?
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna rewrite the septic,
Right.
redo the maps.
Right,
And redo the data table, but instead of doing just the final weight, I'm going to put in all the variables,
you mean,
all the different weights that I have
The components of the final library, so we can see the individual components.
I mean, I
Whether
basically,
it's 055
I have the
or
report,
550.
it's sitting here, all I will do is reweight everything and then hit print, and this will come out again.
Okay.
And I will take, instead of giving you this one,
Mhm.
I will give you this report instead. It's not,
Okay, so, let's close this part of the meeting, unless anybody.
Do you need a motion to do that, John?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
I
Eric,
can,
I
I
think
can,
John wants to go into something else.
yeah, I don't know why you would think that. But is, I mean, have we done enough? Or, I mean, if people wanna keep going,
No, I
This
just
is a
wanna
good
make, I
outcome.
just don't wanna make, I wanna make sure that we don't give David
exactly,
stuff to do that at the end of the day.
he shouldn't
Well,
have to
it's
waste
we
his
won't
time.
That's why we decided to not have him clip the boundary.
We did?
Yeah,
Okay.
You're not doing
Yeah,
that.
because we're gonna do that.
we're gonna
Because there are only
eyeball,
like 6 properties, if we need to know, we can
Okay.
look at
then
it.
we can go back in.
Right.
So does that seem like, does that seem reasonable from your point of
yeah,
view?
that's not, none of that is difficult,
Okay.
and not
That's what I want to be sure.
burdensome. I mean, I can, if you need more, I'm not unwilling to, you know, do something,
Yeah,
and
we
you can
just
look
don't-
at it
we
and say,
don't-
well, no, this really isn't.
Yeah, we
you know,
just
I-
don't wanna keep sending you in circles.
Down to the beach.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
that's fantastic.
That's what we're seeking.
You've just been amazing. So it's getting towards the witching hour, but a couple of things. So do we wanna, what do we wanna do about the mitigation? How pressing is the hazard mitigation?
I have not heard anything again from Margaret, so I think.
But you had contacted her for more information, or?
No,
Oh,
you're going to look, people will
Right.
look at,
so do people wanna do that now, or are you fussed?
I
David, I didn't get the
look at it.
handout
I will
because,
send it to you.
I'll take that as people don't wanna do it now.
Okay.
So be prepared to do it next. Do we have anything coming up next time?
At the moment, I gotta look at what's 21 days out, but I don't think the next meeting's, I think it's less than 21 days out, so
That would
the
be,
subdivision I got today would not be, I mean,
Yeah, it's 3 weeks, the next one.
so.
Winter bonus week.
which one's
But-
second,
This
Thursday?
is
June.
one of the odd.
Yeah,
Next
'cause it's
meeting
a-
is 3 weeks away.
Right,
Really
so-
good months. Fall.
Nice.
So you get a bonus week.
I've already spent 9 hours here today, a lot of stuff.
Really?
nice.
Seriously.
Jesus,
Started at-
Have you backed out your wage for this job?
All the way
that
from
should
home.
be
So
illegal.
yes, there will be a subdivision hearing.
It probably is illegal.
Yeah, all right.
Hadn't had time to figure that out yet, but I did stamp the one I got, so I know that.
What is coming up, which subdivision? Oh, that's yours?
That's our subdivision.
Yes.
Okay, so you wanna give us that stuff?
Yep. You can pass this around, grab one and.
I get a hernia here looking at that.
Oh,
My
man.
spinal discs are not.
David, these were spares.
You must already have one.
Actually, no. I mean, not yet, I will very shortly.
So this is everything?
That is everything I received. I did not get, I only got 3 copies of the full size, so unless the board wants to call it incomplete and get all full size.
All right. So, anything else? Everybody looks pretty fried.
So when's the next meeting?
Should be the second Thursday of June.
Hold on a second.
Oh, no, it's the
Uh, 13th.
13th, so is that 21 days?
That is 21 days from today.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Of course it's in 3
All right,
weeks.
so you'll be here as a.
I actually will not be here, I'm gonna be out of the country.
But your people will
Our
be here?
people will be here.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Germany.
Oh, your son is.
Well, no, what's that?
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Ich spreche Deutsch.
Ich spreche Deutsch nicht.
Cartoon.
I'm going to Hamburg.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go talk to a bunch of people thinking about home router software. How's that for a pointy headed?
I don't know what to say. How long will you be going for?
I could be there for 4 days, so not very long. I'd forgotten that we were queued up for this meeting, and, you know?
That happens.
What is that, it's a home router?
Yeah. So, you know, does your router ever get slow?
I
Is
use a
your
router to make
Is this all
all
the,
kinds of
the,
woodworking stuff.
what, this stuff?
This is the
all
buffer bloat
the
stuff.
buffer block stuff?
Yeah,
so-
right.
My router does beading and it does a lot of woodworking stuff.
You have the best kind of
I
router.
know, it's great. That's the only kind of router I know.
Yeah, right.
Probably not, actually.
Yeah, right.
Now
So,
that you've moved out into the modern era, you certainly have a router.
Yeah, I don't even
Yeah,
know
you
where
can-
it is
you
though.
can-
You
yeah.
probably do have one.
right, I mean, you know, wherever your DSL comes in.
David, do you need me to sign
that's-
it?
Yeah, no, I
Yes.
know, we do.
And so it's possible to make it
Better.
faster. Right,
Yeah,
and so
cool.
that's what these guys have been doing. May I
That
watch?
sounds good.
How many of these are there?
There should be 3 copies, 2 paper and 1, I think there's.
Yeah,
2
you know,
sheets each.
actually, it'd be great if people actually read this, so it isn't always left up to me to make sure I'm signing something. So where am I signing on here?
Whatever you
Anywhere? And what am I, aside from my signature, they obviously want the date
Yes. So,
right here.
This is good, this is loaded here.
yeah, because they're gonna be, this is kind of strange.
Oh, this is crossroads.
Did they?
So buffer bloat man,
Yes.
how do you fix your calendar to accept this odd schedule?
Oh, Tim pulled it that way, that's why.
Okay.
no?
iCal can do, the Apple can do,
Oh,
can
that's,
do like.
well, that's fine, I just,
All right, so,
didn't
So
make
I
sense
had
to
it
me.
every other week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not
We
quite.
can do
So
some.
one
more.
So we said it was gonna be on Thursday.
Yes, so what you wanna do is
Was,
says the
Language that.
meet, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and then repeat, yeah, put, and.
okay, so I should just sign here?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, I'd say for the planning board.
Every month.
John Stadler and date. Or Sir John
On
Stadler,
the-
whatever you,
Right.
There, on the third.
His Highness, Mr. Stadler.
Second, actually,
It says
second
hi, Cernus.
There we
This is early
Thursday.
for the planning board.
No, second Thursday.
So they can put structures there.
And the date is the
That's all-
23rd?
That's only
Yeah.
one.
Five,
And then-
23.
As long as they're not greater
Okay.
than 2,950 square feet.
It depends on how you read it.
Never ends.
There.
Okay,
Okay,
next,
so,
I'm gonna be moving
and then
this
you do it
to,
again for the fourth.
I can, you wanna read it, I can.
No, I got it.
I'm just not an Apple guy.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, and here?
There's an open spot over there.
Okay.
All right, thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
Look at that, to the second. Ding.
Subject to condition G,